Welcome to the Life Makeovers podcast. My name is Cindy D. Whitmer, and I am the Midlife Makeover Coach, helping you turn your midlife into your best life, one step at a time. Through powerful conversations, my own midlife roller coaster story, and over 3 decades of helping people transform their lives through counseling and coaching, I am on a mission to help you create your own definition of success and happiness. Thank you for being here. Hey, everybody, it's Cindy here. And I wanted to follow up on my episode from the other day about some of my stories and lessons from midlife dating and tell you about the person I call the Irishman. Okay, the Irishman. I won't tell you why I'm calling him that, but that's what the code word's going to be for this guy. But I'm going to share the story because he and I also met online and we chitty chatted for a bit and we ended up going out on dates and dating, doing some real dating. And I got to know him. It was getting to know him as 5 or 6 weeks into dating him, I believe, about 5 or 6 weeks. And he wanted to invite me over to his place, he said, and I said, okay, great. So he lived in a different town than me, not too far. And so I said, okay, well, I'll come down and, that'd be great. Well, so first he wanted to meet me for a meal and then he was going to take me to his place. And so we went and had lunch. I believe it was that day. It was a midday date. And when we were at lunch, he sat me down and he said, I need to tell you something before I take you to my place. Now, remember, people, we'd been dating for several weeks by this time. And actually, we were exclusively dating. We weren't dating other people anymore. I mean, we were in a relationship by this time. It moved pretty quickly, I would say. And he said, I need to tell you something before we go to my place. I'm like, okay. And he goes, I live with my mother. Okay, this is a 50-some-year-old man. He said, I live with my mother and her husband, and my part of the house is the basement. And I said, okay. He said, I just thought I should tell you that. And I'm like, okay. So I was a little put off by that. I thought that was of concern, but I didn't want to judge too quickly. So he took me over to his place. So I met his mother and her husband, and very kind, gracious people and so forth. A nice older home, very well kept and everything. And then he escorted me down to the basement, and I'm thinking we're headed down to a finished basement where he's got his own, layout there. And all it was a washer and dryer. So the laundry area was down there. And then I saw this single mattress on the floor. That was his bed. And then he also had a rope hanging from one side to the other where his clothes were hanging on hangers. And the floor was a cement floor. And his little dog lived down there too with him. And that was his living space. And I didn't want to put anybody down. I don't want to be mean about people or anything. I just was taken aback that this man at this age of his life was in such a state financially that he didn't have his own place, for example. And he had been divorced and told me that his ex-wife was getting all his money, and for their kids, they had 3 kids, and that's why he didn't have any money for a place of his own. So that's why he was living in his mother's basement. And I thought, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. I liked this guy. I loved this guy. And I thought, no, this makes sense. I get how this could all happen, and I thought, well, he's just going through a hard time. He's a professional guy. He's working. He'll get out of this situation, and there'll be an end in sight to this, and da 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 da. Well, time went on. I stayed with him. There were good things about our relationship. There were some not super great things I felt about it, but good enough. Are you listening to my language? Good enough, which is not good enough, by the way. But at that point, I was only a couple years out of my divorce, and that's where I was at. That was where I was at. I was still working on being 100% healthy, 100% healthy myself, healthier myself. And what I found was my dating choices improved as I got happier and healthier and more confident in my own life. But at this point, this was just a couple years after my divorce, I was still compromising in my mind. I was still like, I made it okay with me that this grown man was sleeping on a mattress on his mother's basement, cold, hard floor. And that's where he called home. So there were other dynamics around the whole situation. Eventually, he revealed to me that he wanted to live in her house because he wanted to make sure he was in charge of it when she died so he could get it and his brother couldn't get it. The other thing that got problematic for me was I realized he could never have his kids overnight as guests because he didn't have bedrooms for them, legal bedrooms for them. So this guy, I felt, was motivated by the wrong things, or at least things that didn't line up for me in my life. Like I wouldn't have made the same choices as him. So I knew we just looked at life very, very differently. And I was unimpressed with this situation, these dynamics, the financial dynamics involved, the family dynamics involved. But I stayed with him for, I think we were together. I don't think I know. We were together 5 months before I got myself out of it. Now, I tell you this story, not because I think he was a bad guy. The Irishman was not a bad guy. This isn't about ratting on men. None of these stories are. It's about saying to you out there dating is to, again, see people for who they are, believe them. Like Maya Angelou is famous for saying, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And have your strong ideas about what you want in a person. Like I wanted a guy to come into my life who was financially secure, who had his own home, who was gainfully employed, and valued his family highly, and lived a life that backed that up. And this guy did not match that, in my opinion. But yet I stayed with him for 5 months. You want to spend time with people who treat you like a priority. And sometimes the Irishman treated me like a priority, and sometimes he didn't. He disappointed me several times, yet I stayed with him again and again and again. Just, I don't know. I think I was still in that mindset of I need to go all out to try to make something work, and I need to try to understand and and wow. So ultimately it wasn't easy for me to walk away, but I was very clear. Now, here's an interesting twist to this story, which made me all the more glad that I left this situation. But a year later, I got a call from a lawyer who was an advocate for the Irishman's children, and said to me, I understand that you know the children of so-and-so. And I said, well, yes, I met with them a few times a year ago. And he said, well, did you ever have any, how did he say it? He said, did you ever have any indication that the children had been abused by their father, or did they ever tell you that they've been abused by their father, or what was your, he said something like, what was your therapeutic impression of these children? And I said, well, well, I said, I wasn't their therapist. And he said, what? You weren't? And I said, no, I was their father's girlfriend. And he said, oh, I was given the impression that you were the therapist to these three children. So, in other words, the Irishman had told this child advocate lawyer person that I was the kids' therapist, when in fact I was just his girlfriend for 5 months and met them, I think 3 times. I spent time with them, with him. And I said to the guy, no, 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 no. We went to Worlds of Fun one whole day together. We went to dinner one night together. We did, I told him the 2 or 3 times I met these kids. And he sat there dumbfounded on the phone with me. And then he said, well, I guess because you're a licensed mental health counselor, you would have had to, you're a mandatory reporter. So you would have had to report if you sense there was any abuse by this father toward his kids. So I guess that means you did. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So ladies, the Irishman may have been using me in a dating relationship also to, as a layer of protection that he was not abusing his kids, or I'm not even sure what all the motivation was there, that he would lie and tell this lawyer that I was their mental health counselor. But so, in other words, the Irishman used deception in his life to get what he wanted in different areas. And I don't even know if the things he told me about his marriage were true and so forth. So I am super happy that I got out of that relationship a long, long time before that. So anyway, again, be yourself, get out quickly, move on quickly when you know things are not good. Trust yourself and listen carefully to the stories men are telling you on dates, and especially regarding their other relationships, for you to help to get to know them better. Stick what's super important to you regardless, and be okay that they may not ever really believe you for who you are, but as long as you know who you are, then that's what's important. So these were some of there's more tips and stories in Wednesday's episode that just dropped a couple of days ago, if you want to go into this subject longer, but those are some of the highlights, and I thought kind of a cool story to show how sometimes things just aren't as they seem. So we're all just doing the best we can. Again, despite these experiences, I just feel like I grew and grew and grew. The more that I dated, the more I grew and was clear and confident about what I wanted. And then eventually I was in such a great space with myself and my life that I would be a good match for my best match. So that's what I encourage you to do. Just keep growing yourself and learning more about yourself and valuing yourself more highly, and build that confidence, because you will draw unto yourself how you are. You will attract what you are like. So be more and more attracted to yourself, more and more confident in your life and sure of yourself. And then you will find someone who is like that as well. So anyway, I hope this was helpful, and I will talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening. How would you like to receive my #1 best-selling book, The Midlife Makeover Method? All you have to do is leave a review for this podcast, take a snapshot of it, and send it to cindy@cindydwhitmer.com. We'll drop the email address in the details, and I will talk to you again soon. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.